Hello, Kumu here. So last time we talked about for loops and list and dictionaries. There was a few things I forgot to mention about for loops. There's a else statement to afterwards it will do this as else. I have not used it much. I haven't seen a need, but there is cases for it. This time we're going to talk about functions and the keyword wild. Um, in a sense of looping continuously till something is true. If we check the documentation as we have right here, um, wild, then the assessment expression, which is basically the same for a if statement is a sense. So like if something's true, do this, but this is going to continue till it's true, or till it's not true. There's ways to do that too. And there's also the else in here as well. Um, I would recommend looking into that yourself to try to figure out how that works. Um, since that just gives you like an assignment or something to mess with and try and see how you like it. So I'm gonna go around here and make a new file. Uh, do, 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 do. Let's call this, best way to describe it. Let's do function 0. Um, so a function. Let's first talk about a function and then we'll get into wild. So we already used this function before in the for loop, which is range, which is built in. So range is essentially a function that is built in that will get a predetermined range. So in this case, it will be till 5. So if I print range of 5, it gets 0 through 5. Since if it's used in a for loop, it will grab 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. And so if I make it into a list, you'll see what I mean. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So essentially that function, we have to define the function. Let's just say functions. And I'm just going to say 0 just for the fun of it. And then I'm going to use the pass keyword that essentially just tells the function to do nothing. Um, it not essentially it's not none, but it's just saying skip this. So it's like a placeholder as well. So for a function, it inside these parentheses you can put what are called args and keyword args. So for this right here, what I put in, this function will take a unlimited amount because this expression of the star and double star, and then for keyword args, some built-in functions require you to have an argument or a keyword argument. And but right now, I'm just going to do the simple, just takes a string arg and then just prints it. And we'll just mess with it. I'll leave that as is right now. We're going to talk about wild for a little bit. So while x does not equal 10, I should say not that. Let's do less than 10, and we're going to make a variable called x up here, which is going to be 0. So if I pass this argument right here, and when we run it, this will continue running over and over and over and over and over and over and over till this becomes 10. Because this x is less than 10. You can also do greater than 10, but we will need to increment the x. There's a few ways of doing it. So the easiest way is to do the normal way most people would do it would be um, easiest way to do it is the second one. But one way people do it, or the initial way that used to be done, is x equals x plus 1. And this right here, this plus equals does the same thing, but without needing the extra bits, you can say, or the extra x, the variable, and the extra plus. So it just makes it shorter and easier to read. Since we're incrementing it, I'm just going to print, I am going to use a for string for x. So x is, and I'm going to do capital X, just makes it easier to read. So if I run this, you'll see x is 0, x is 1, x is 2, all the way up till 9. It's the same thing how a for loop works. So as I made this function earlier with an argument, the argument is essentially would do the same thing as this in some ways. So I'm going to take this right here real quick, cut, paste, change this to string argument, and I'm just going to say function 0 with x. So what this is doing is taking this function, taking this is the parameter, but this is the argument. They are two different things. It's just easier to remember the parameter goes into the function you're using. Argument is what you need for the function to work. Um, because if this is left as blank, you will get an error because the parameter is not filled. So I'm going to do this as x. And essentially, functions are reusable code that you may want to use a number amount of times. So in here, I can add a bunch of if statements or else if for loops, however you want to do it, to do a bunch of functions over and over without rewriting the same code over and over. So let me see if x is, and then print, not, bleh, not parentheses. Oh, I forget what this one's called. Ugh. So some of these things I always tend to forget, but I'm gonna check real quick just so my brain doesn't go rambling. Yeah, percent sign, okay. Oh, it's been forever. I just know it. I always forget it. So if x is the parenthesis sign 2 equals 0, which essentially is the way of rounding a number or checking a number, if I'm saying that correctly. Um, if not, my bad, I'm sorry. um, as But yeah, let's go to the documentation for simple statements. Go here, let me see. Does this have what I'm looking for? So it's an arithmetic augmentation. Should be more for it. Where is it? Uh, I, I'm sorry. So what was the word? Rooted? No, not rooted. Root, rounded. Oh, what is it? My brain does not work. Sadly, I know what it does, but I always forget how to describe it, which is my bad. It's essentially finding the remainder. That's it. It's a good way to find the remainder of the number. So if it's like dividing by 2, so if x is 2, and then essentially, no, is it? Ah, sorry, I'm rambling again. Let's just see how it works, and that may gives more detail. So I'm going to do a if else statement. So if x is not divided, but find the remainder of with 2, and if it equals 0, um, how do we want to word this? Is even is a even good way to say it. And then I could do this as well. I don't need x here. I need string arg. string ug. Alright, so there's a few things else we can do is called a type hint. I'll talk about that in a later video. So what I'm going to do here, when I run this code, it's going to continue my brain, come on, work with me. Continue. Come on, brain. Why am I... What? There's no you here? No, it's continue, not continue. Oh, goddamn. Sorry. Excuse my language. I sometimes just the simplest things go, huh? So continue till the expression is false. So this is gonna run till this is false. So while true, you can use while not, which reverses it. It basically just flips it to if false. And then it's going to increment this by 1. So x will now be 1 after the first implementation, then 2, then 3, as we see down here. And so we're going to go through this 10 times. So let me run this code. And then down here we'll see 0 is even, x is 1, 2 is even, x is 3. Then we do 4 is even, x is 5, so on and so on. So, and then we can do else as well, which I recommend you messing with this yourself. I'm just going to say done. Yeah, and then at the end it prints done. And then you can also do a keyword called finally, which, oh, is that only for, let me see right here, finally. No, it seems, okay, that may be only for for loops. And a few other things. So, let's see. Let's go back to the documentation and look into a few things. So, let's go to the functions documentation. So, it shows you right here, basically the sum of two numbers. Take 1, an integer, b, an integer that takes an integer. These are the type hints for the function you can add. And then this just tells you though what's going to be outputted, which is going to be an integer, and then return. So return we haven't looked at yet. So let me just do a new function. So define, let's do find 5, just for the fun of it. Oops, excuse me. And it's going to take a integer argument, and let's just do a type hint for this. And some of the expressions let you know it's going to come out as a integer. So when we highlight our function, it gives us some more information as well. So let's say find 5, the argument, the type hint would be an integer, and it returns a integer. And it does need to return an integer. It can't return a string. It can't return a boolean. And this just helps tell, like, this function can't go with a string in it. So let's just return if, oh, sorry. Let me do it a different way. So let's do if integer argument equals 5, return 5. Let's actually return, you know, let's return a string instead. So go here, number dash integer is 5. And then else return number slash integer is not 5. And then we can do another while loop. So I'm just going to do while true, which this will run until it gets to another keyword we're going to talk about here. So I'm going to do another integer variable. I'm going to continue using x, but I'm just going to set x back to 0. Since it has been incremented over here, we do need to set it back to x equals 0, because if it doesn't get set back, no, let's actually use what it left off as. So if x is 5, or what I'm going to do is if, and I'm going to just use the function inside find 5. Let's do equals, let's do a really complicated one, which then I'm going to use the keyword break. This right here is something you can use in a for loop as well. I didn't talk about it much. Most of the time, or a lot of the time, it's used inside while loops to break out of it to go to the end of the code. So I'm going to put down a print thing here, end of the code. And then let me do here is print found the number 5. Since this is going to be at 9 to begin with, let's change a few things about this. So let's find 20. So let's change this a little bit and go 20, 20, 20, 20. I do have to change the function name as well in 20, and then change 20. So what this is going to do now is it's going to continue to run till it breaks. I am going to put a safe code into this code. If x is greater than 100, just break it, just so it doesn't go on forever. So if this never becomes true in any other sense, we have a safe code to break out of it, so it doesn't just keep running and running and running and running, and we have to break it ourselves. So first things first, tell me what this is going to do. Or what do you think it's going to do? If this is going to continue forever, or till at least x is 100, what is x currently? Well, let me just lowercase x. And then we can make the joke of how many times till this is true. Ooh, I put till. Till dawn. And then we do need to increment x again, because x has not been re-implemented to be incremented up 1 every time. So, let's see, I'm going to add the comment down here. Adds 1 to x. I could have done that up here before, but we can do it here now. So, let me run it. End of code. Didn't even get into the code, did it? Oh! This should be running. Did this even get into the code? We have a problem somewhere. Let's track this down. So while true, should go in, go up to here, Let me check to see. Broken? Question mark. So, what is X at the moment? Let me print X. Oh, so it ran through X 100 times and didn't find it. Let me change this code a little bit just to make it easier. So results equal find 20, and we're giving it X. And then let me change this to results. And before I even check it, I'm going to look at what the results are. So now we should get some display of information. Integer is not 20. Integer is 205. Oops, I accidentally put. I see the mistake now. I accidentally put 20 or 205 up here instead of is 20. So hopefully you see why I ask questions, what's going to happen. See, sometimes you don't question that the code's perfect. As I said, everyone's going to make mistakes. You're going to realize you accidentally did something wrong just because you typed too fast or you didn't double check a few things. So it's always best to review, double check to make sure. Sometimes it's just easier instead of making something super complicated, you can always just return 20. Um, and then or none, which would be a simpler way to do it. And since it's an integer, I'm just going to do integer or number of none. What this essentially does is it says either or, um, so integer or none, which this is an integer and this is none. So when we return the 20 or none, this will be that, and then I'm just gonna go down here, and then is equal 20. And then let's see what this does. There we go, 20. And you can see none, 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 none. Found the number 20. And it breaks out and goes down. And then I can also do if results is none, which we've used before. Or let me say is not none. I'm just going to print the results. Um, and that's also another thing I could do. Like either way, I could do print those. I can actually do this as well. I could do this works because find 20 will return none. So if it's not none, so if it's 20 or anything else, it will execute this code. But you do not need to do that. This was just a way to display the results to make sure that the outcome is coming out correctly in the function. So I don't really actually need this, but I can actually use another word called and. Um, results is not none. What this does is make sure it's 20 and it's not none. So if I print this, there we go, found the number 20, end of code. Alright, let's see. So there's a few things I've used and didn't talk about yet. I may talk about in the next video. I just want to get some of the functionalities, the for loops, while loops, list and dictionaries, which looks, get tongue tied here. List and dictionaries. Um, you can do the same thing for while to check. So it just makes it easier to check instead of the for loop. You can go through a bunch of different things. So this is just one way to use while loop with a function. You can do the same thing with a for loop. So you can use for loop and then you can rotate through a list, rotate through a dictionary. So if we used a function instead of a like a repeater code or repeat amount of code, which I believe I used in this example of variables, I've just copied and pasted this. I can turn this into a function so it gets printed just by the function instead of using the same amount of code over and over. And the same for everything here. You can just turn it into a function and repeat it a lot easier compared to trying to copy and paste over and over. And I've done it, I've tested it. My first big project, I had a lot of repeat code that I could have shrunk down a lot easier, but still pretty novice. And hopefully I'm at a decent level. I don't know my exact level of what I can do. Um, and if I kept doing it over and over and had the drive to do it, sometimes you get burnt out or some things cause you to not want to do it for a while. That's me in some cases. There's a project I've been working on for quite a few years, sadly, but every time I try to get to it, something happens and I can't get into it like I need to and want to. So I just put it off and put it off and put it off, and I'll just keep doing small projects. And that's just way how to learn. Um, so I'm just gonna go over a quick refresher of what we've done just to end this properly. I don't know if I've ended the other ones properly, but sorry, I'm not a teacher by trade, but this is for me, and looking at the code will help me in the future. Hopefully, it helps someone. There's probably a lot of other videos and a lot of places to learn code better. Recommend if you're not wanting or looking for my examples, feel free to go through every single video like I did, which if you go into tutorial hell, enjoy the them telling you everything of how to use it, but not the purpose sometimes, or they're just describing it to so much into detail that they're using stuff you've never used before. And that's one reason why I'm trying to break it down into a different type of way for me and myself in the future. So the first thing we did, we made a while loop that originally had a print of x. So what it is, just printed x. Then instead of that print statement, we had the print statement check to see get the remainder with 2 of the string argument, which me forgetting to think I should say this is an integer argument, but I just did string by nature. I should say it return basically it prints a string statement. See, some of the things. This is why one reason you want to review your code and go over your code to make sure everything is worded right and described correctly. You can do what's called inside your functions is a document string or doc string. It just basically says finds the remainder remainder. My God, my brain is not working with spelling today. There we go. Finds the remainder, um and if it is even to 0, print, and then we can say the parameter, which this is the argument, and this is the parameter, which means what goes into the argument. Um, let's see. The best way to describe it is the number to be checked, and I'm just gonna say returns none, so I can actually do that hint, type hint up here of none, just to make it easier that this will not return anything. So if someone does try to use it and return it as none, I've not actually seen this before, but there's a lot of things I do and have not really looked into. I just use it. Bad habits, but everyone which way does their coding, the way that helps them and looks at them. Sometimes being overwhelmed with information is not a bad thing, but it definitely does drag down the mind. So let's continue on to the next thing we did. So we did a while statement that will continue to run till it breaks. And then I made a function that it will be returning a integer or none, and we give it a parameter of an integer that needs to be checked to see if it equals 20, and then it returns 20, else it returns none. Then down here, uh, we made a variable called results that equals the returned integer or none of found 20, and then it checks to see if it's 20 and is not none, which let me do something real quick. Um, I'm gonna make a variable called test, which I'm gonna is make it into a boolean. So else, which I'm gonna show you a little neat trick that helps test a few things. Actually, I'm gonna move this down into here. X3. And I'm just gonna copy the same expected and Control Alt L to format. There we go. X is found as 20. So since this returns none, none does not equal 20, but it doesn't throw an error. So that's just the easier way to make it more readable and then all of this extra. Um, so as I said, there's different ways to do it. So I just showed you a little example of how to test and check things, try to make it compact, more readable, which a lot of times code is doesn't seem readable at first unless you break it down by step. I have gone through the process of one of my old codes of making a section where it has a test in it, print if test is true, make a global test variable, and then have it print like step 1, step 2, step 3. So it runs through the steps. So if something breaks, I can find where that comes from. But the try and expect block is another way of doing it, which I'll get into at a later video. It's just, this was before I used try and expect a lot. So this is the continues to be true, which as you just saw, I added a new test variable if test is true, which this if just tests to see if this is true. So this could be anything other than none or false, and it should return true. If a list is empty, it's not true because there's no object or item, object or string or boolean, however you want to word it, in the list. Same as a dictionary. So it's best to sometimes do like actual make sure this is this, but this is just one way to do it for quick and easy to check something real quick to see if you like it better or not. So, no, I'm getting sidetracked again. Sorry, I'm rambling. So, while true, then we check to see if this is true. So, if true, so it's going into this code right here. It's gonna loop through this, and then at the bottom it increments. So x is right now 9. So it checks to see if 9 equals 20. If not, it's going to return none. So, and I'm going to put a comma here. Returns 20 if true. And as I've demonstrated earlier, it does find 20. I'm going to just turn this to false. There we go. Found 20 again. and I can always change the x variable at any point if I want to. So in the test, I'm going to change this back to true, and I'm going to make test equal, let's do 99, so it skips even this. So it only run like 5 times. Oh, see? It's still going because it skipped over. Yeah, it's still running. I forgot to do here. So if x is greater than or equal, it should break, but it didn't. Let me put an else statement. Let's see what's going on here. Let's print x. Oh, right, because it's still true. See, this is why the best thing to do is not have your variables inside, because every time it's gonna change x back to 99. So, see, that this is the fun of messing and testing around, and so let's just make sure it's like extra break equals 0. Um, and then down here, oop, I accidentally extra break plus equal 1. So this is just a silly thing I don't need to do, but it just helps with remembering how if and else works to go through. So it's essentially a extra way to break it for fun. It's easier, simple to change this, just move this outside of the while loop, but there we go. 9999, and then it breaks. It means it's gonna run 6 times because 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So hopefully that explains a lot of information about um, functions, while loops, as well as some more things you can do for using code without rewriting the code over and over and over in different places. Because I can use function just 0 in this down here as well. You can make a general purpose function and stuff like that. You can always make a function that counts a number and it breaks for you. Um, but it's always funny to test and mess around. So, thank you very much, and you have a wonderful day.